Right now, Zimmerman on trial by some called the civil rights case hero of the early century. Now the world is watching and waiting to see if everybody is truly equal under the law. And also tonight, the identity of the NSA leaker, it has been revealed. He is on the run. What should be done about him? And what about the broader question about where that line really starts when it comes to privacy and protection, and can we have both? And later, we want you to meet the candidates. One of these faces will take over the late Senator Lautenberg's old Senate seat. With the wind at Cory Booker's back, can anyone else really challenge the charmer from Newark? Good evening, everybody, and welcome to RFL. I'm Richard French. Thanks so much for joining us this Monday evening, June 10th. A lot to cover this hour, but we begin in Florida tonight.
To borrow a line from William Faulkner, it's going to be a long, hot summer in Seminole County come June 10th.
Well, long, hot summer indeed. Jury selection, it started today in the second-degree murder trial of Florida neighborhood watchman George Zimmerman. He is on trial here, and it is a trial with heightened racial tensions, and it will also test the limits of our justice system. The Martin family's attorney, he calls it the civil rights case of the century.
You've called it the civil rights trial or civil rights case of the century.
So of this new millennium, because the whole world is watching. I've often said it. Had Trayvon Martin shot an unarmed George Zimmerman, he would have been arrested day one, hour one, moment one. The whole world is watching to see how far America has advanced in the matters of equal justice. Does everybody in America get equal justice, or is it just certain people?
George Zimmerman, for his sake, he was wearing a bulletproof vest as his second-degree murder trial got underway. The parents of Trayvon Martin, the 17-year-old that he's accused of killing, well, they sat there stone-faced in the county courthouse today as the jury selection phase began. Trayvon's father, he asked for a fair trial, and he also asked for peace.
As we seek justice for our son Trayvon, and we also seek a fair and impartial trial. We ask that the community continue to stay peaceful.
And that community has become polarized since Martin's death in February of last year. The teen, unarmed, walking in a residential area of Sanford, Florida, when Zimmerman, a neighborhood watch volunteer, called the police to report him as suspicious looking. He was told to stand down, but a confrontation followed, but only one walked away to say what happened that evening. Zimmerman, who left the scene with injuries to his head, said he was attacked and he shot Martin in self-defense. But some claim that Zimmerman targeted Martin, because of the color of his skin. I want to bring in our panel on this. We're joined right now by Dominic Carter, political journalist and author, Mayo Bartlett, former chief of the Bias Crimes Unit, Westchester County DA's office, and Andrew Whitman, our senior political correspondent. Dominic, Attorney Crump's assessment of the case. Is it hyperbole here that this is the racial case of the century so far, or no?
It's not hype at all. You know, a lot of Americans may be sitting back saying, calm down, everyone, let the criminal justice run its course. And that's good advice, and that's the way most of us feel. But make no mistake about it, if Mr. Zimmerman is found not guilty, it's not going to be good in many minority communities across America, because they see this as a clear-cut case. The 911 operator said, do not get involved. Do not get involved. He did it anyway. There's no way around that. Period. End of story.
Got a couple questions, Mayor, as to how the process works. And first, walk through the jury selection phase. I mean, and I'm not asking you to do the 101 for us in terms of preemptions that the attorneys have, but put yourself in this, used to be a prosecutor, the prosecutor in this case, and also the defense attorney, obviously a role you know well now. When they're looking for jurors, what specifically are they looking for given the facts of the case?
Well, they're looking, hopefully the prosecution in particular is looking for people who are going to be fair and impartial. Both sides should be looking for people who have not made up their mind. Now that's going to be a little more challenging when you have a case that has a lot of media attention, but it's something that can clearly be done that happens every day. We're in a media age now where you have coverage of lots of different cases. The prosecution's going to want someone that's most likely going to be a leader. They're going to be looking for people who probably feel that guns are not the issue, but people are the issue. They're going to want to.
So they love to have NRA white guys.
Absolutely, you're going to want that. You know, we used to always, as prosecutors, you'd look for people who were Con Edison workers. Okay, you'd look for people who you felt would be receptive to what police may say, and it's a bit of a paradox here because normally those people who are listening to what police will say would be who the prosecution is looking for. You want someone who's going to sit down and say, okay, I believe the officers. Why would they arrest him if he didn't do something wrong?
Now, so much after the shooting came down to what we've learned about the life of Trayvon Martin before, and then the life of Mr. Zimmerman after the shooting. How much of that stuff is admissible? Because for folks who followed it even remotely, the Zimmerman legal team is trying to say that this was not a good kid. This is a kid who knew guns. This is a kid who knew weed. This was not your model kid here, and he probably was trouble that night. That's what they're trying to get out into the general public. How much of that makes its way into the trial?
Well, I can tell you in New York, a lot of that should not make it into the trial. Now, different states have different laws, so I can't really tell you what Florida's law would be and how much of that would be admissible there. But what I can tell you is that generally, you're going to try to muddy up the person. And in a case of a homicide, it's different than every other case because Trayvon Martin doesn't get an opportunity to explain himself. He doesn't get an opportunity for the jury to see him and to feel comfortable with him, to try to get an assessment of who he is. With
Well,
respect
let's be honest. None of that really, forget about how people feel, that shouldn't make any difference because that night, he didn't have a gun. That night, he was walking home. And that night, George Zimmerman was told to stand down, and he didn't. So won't a judge say, time out here? We're talking about that evening. We're not talking about the week before or the month before.
Sometimes. Let's say, for instance, if you had a reputation as being a person who carries a gun and who has shot people in the past, and that reputation is known to the person who you're engaged with, well, then that should come in because now it goes toward their state of mind, whether they had a reasonable fear that you were going to harm them. Now, there's no suggestion that any of that applies here. But sometimes your prior reputation does come into play. Sometimes prior bad acts may come into play for Mr. Zimmerman. I always was of the mindset that you ought to be able to prove a case just based on the merits of the case itself. I shouldn't have to get into whether you've had prior bad acts, you got into fights 8 years ago, you did something 9 years ago.
Isn't that the kind of stuff that bleeds in from the press coverage? And if so, how do you exclude that if you're trying to keep jurors open-minded? Well,
not only does it bleed in, but it bleeds in often inaccurately across the board. And there was an issue early on with Mr. Zimmerman being characterized as a racist and having suggested that the reason he thought Trayvon Martin looked strange was because he was black. And then we later learned that that wasn't even included. He hadn't said that. It was taken out of context. So those things make it difficult across the board.
Now, certainly two things we know that will play a role are audio clips that we had from that night. If we could play the first one, guys, and this is from the 911 call that Zimmerman made. Again, this is the call where the person on the other line, the operator, told him, don't get involved, stand down. They were going to send a car over to the area anyway. Again, this is Zimmerman the night of the shooting. In fact, just minutes before the shooting. Take a listen.
Hey, we've had some break-ins in my neighborhood, and there's a real suspicious guy. It's Retrieve View Circle. This guy looks like he's up to no good, or he's on drugs or something. It's raining, and he's just walking around looking about.
Okay, and this guy, is he white, black, or Hispanic?
He looks black. Yeah, now he's coming towards me.
Okay.
This guy's hand in his waistband. Yeah, he's a black male. Something's wrong with him. Yeah, he's coming to check me out. He's got something in his hands. I don't know what his deal is. These they always get away. He's running.
He's running? Which way is he running?
Down towards the other entrance of the neighborhood.
Okay. Which entrance is that he's heading towards?
The back entrance.
Are you following him?
Yeah.
Okay, we don't need you to do that.
Okay. They always get away and clearly told to stand down. Now, finally, this is the clip that audio experts have gone over, and nobody can be clear who is on it. But if there is any clarity, I don't know how this is possible, but if there is, it will go a long way to deciding the case. This, again, audio that was captured of the physical struggle. Take a listen.
Do you need police, fire, medical?
Maybe both. I'm not sure. There's just someone screaming outside.
And is it a male or female?
It sounds like a male.
And you don't know why?
I don't know why. I think they're yelling help, but I don't know. Just send someone quick.
Does he look hurt?
I can't see him. I don't want to go out there. I don't know what's going on. So
you think he's yelling help?
Yes.
Your phone number.
Just there's gunshots.